Welcome into another Inside Carolina This Week in UNC Baseball. I am Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt Incongruity. That is Scott Forbes. Hopefully Grace Nugent join us shortly. Coach Forbes, as I speak, she comes in. Hold on. Let me get it right out the gate. As I speak, she appears. Trip to Louisville, not as successful as you like. I wanted to ask you, we talked so much last year in early season about those Sunday games, and you've struggled in back-to-back Sunday games, even with outstanding performances by Aidan Haugh. What do you think is the kicker this year so far versus last year, how you were able to have a lot of success on Sundays?
Oh, honestly, I don't have an answer for you so early. I'm not diving into that too much because we've won all of our Sunday games except for two back-to-back, and we just didn't swing the bat. You're not going to win when you don't score. So 2 goose eggs. Try not to overplay it too much and move on and understand that, at the end of the day, you're just trying to win the series. You'd love to get a sweep here or there, obviously. You want to avoid getting swept. But I don't think there's a certain formula, Tommy. I think we just have not played well is the formula that I'm seeing. The two things that have been in common on those 2 Sundays, it's not just that we're not scoring, that we're not making plays defensively. And you look at the season as a whole with 16-4, obviously you're going to amplify the losses as a coach because that's what we do. But those 2 Sundays, they just weren't great days for us on the field, and you just try to make those corrections and move and go on from there.
When you look at the pitching performance, I mean, I'm not sure there's much more Aidan Haugh can do, but you evaluate it more than we do looking on the outside in. What can he do to improve? Because he's been pretty impressive so far.
No, that's the silver lining. Obviously, you got a guy like that that's matching their guy. You're still in the game and you have a chance to win. So I think the biggest thing offensively and defensively to learn from it is, hey, our guys, they're going to keep us in the game on the mound. We have to make plays behind them, and don't overreact if you're getting stuffed a little bit early. It's just part of baseball, and keep manufacturing runs. If you look at that Sunday game at Louisville, we only ended up with 1 hit, so that was an issue. But we had base runners. They walked us 7 times. We didn't get the big hit when it mattered most, so we have to get better at that in situations. But if your guy's out there matching the other guy, and if you have pitching, I just got done watching that 3-part documentary on the Red Sox in 2004 on Netflix when they came back from 3-0. Joe Torre said the thing that scared him the most about the Red Sox was they had pitching. And that was the one thing that could stop us, quote, the Yankees. And I think we have that. So, the hitting is hard and it's contagious. And you just have to hope you can heat up at the right time. And until then, if you have those arms and you're picking it up, you're going to be in every game, which we have been.
When you have one of those games like Sunday where it's not exactly going well at the plate for your guys, but it's going well on the mound, how do you try to get the energy or the momentum up in that dugout so they can go compete at the plate?
You just don't freak out and you don't get tight as a coach, and you just remind the guys to keep plugging, keep playing. Either way, you got to play 27 outs. You have to play every pitch. You look at the other game on Friday, we're up 7-3. And they hit a grand slam, they tie it up, and they score another run, and they beat us 8-7. So just reminding your guys the game's long. You stay with it. You don't get too high. You don't get too low. When you've been doing this long enough, you know how many games we play. And you're going to have some series here or there that you don't have the success you want to have, but you also don't let those series define you, and you move on and you get going for the next week. So in the game, Grace, it's really not just staying with it. You have to lift your guys off the mat a little bit when they're struggling offensively and remind them that, hey, it's over. We left the bases loaded in the 3rd, but now we're in the 6th. Let's get them loaded again and see if we can come through with a big hit.
We've talked a lot, and so have you, about how Friday sets the tone. Jason maybe hasn't had his best 2 outings these past 2 Fridays, but we've seen him pitch fearlessly before this season, last season in huge spots. What does he need to do, and what do you know he's going to do to get him back to that level of fearlessness on the mound?
Yeah, I feel like he's still been pitching with fearlessness. I think he's just off a little bit. And that's our job as coaches, to work hard in the bullpen. He's going to throw 2 bullpens this week. We're going to give him an extra day and move Knapp to Friday to give Jason an extra day to work on that delivery. The velocity was a little misleading on TV. It was harder than it looked because of TrackMan data that we had. So his velocity's been good. He's competing his tail off. He just had 2 bad outings. Well, bad outings for him that are amplified when you don't make plays defensively. And what he's not doing, he was able to do more last year or early this year, strike you out in a big situation. So got to get him back to that, which he will. He's one of our best. He's one of the best still in the country. I'm not concerned about Jason DeCaro. Pitchers have struggles just like hitters. They can get cold and they can get hot. So I think having a little bit of extra time this week to get 2 bullpens in to get his mechanics ironed out will help him tremendously.
You mentioned moving Knapp to Friday. I was going to ask you that because Jake has been very good in his role this year. What have you seen as the season's going on? I was looking at the stats. I think he's 1 inning shy of DeCaro, having started a little bit later. What have you seen from him that justifies that move to Friday for him? And does it ultimately matter for a player, do you think, to where they pitch?
Everybody wants to be the first guy. So competitively, it would matter from the standpoint they're all competing against each other. All the years we've had horses like we do have. In 2006, my first year as a pitching coach, we played the national championship. We started Woodard, Bard, Miller. Then when it was Bard, Miller, Woodard, and we ended up with Miller, Woodard, Bard. So the same 3 guys, flipped them up a little bit. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I remind our players all the time, the confidence part is on you. At North Carolina, we're not going to take your confidence. We don't degrade our players. We don't embarrass them. It's a positive environment. So, keep your confidence up. And if you let your confidence change because you went from Friday to Saturday, we might as well just put you in the bullpen. So that's the least thing I'm concerned about with DeCaro. The reason you do that as a coach is you go by what you see. Jake was going to be our Friday guy going into the season last year. We thought he'd throw 130 innings. He's a big kid. He throws a ton of strikes. You got to hit him most of the time. And I think he has the ability to handle that load, and he's older and he's experienced. So your hope is, hey, this Friday guy can go out there and pretty much repeatedly give us a potential 7-inning game. And last year we were a little banged up, and Jason was really good, but he also, didn't have many games where he's going into that 7th, 8th type guy. The kid's 18. Last year he was 17. And just being able to handle the workload, I think Jake's a little more ready for that with his age and his body.
How is being Friday guy different from being a Saturday guy? Competitiveness aside, going in, you've got your scout, you do a ton of work scouting your opponent. But then on that Saturday guy, he's got a live, I saw it up close scout. How is that different for a player and guys you've been around?
I think the main difference is you're going up against another Friday guy, and you got to match that guy. In our league, traditionally, the Friday guys there's not a lot of hitting going on. Traditionally, that's the crazy part so far about us. We've scored on both the Friday guys and not scored on the Sunday guys, which is, obviously doesn't happen too often. You get a guy like Forbes throwing 100 and we get him out of the game. But at the end of the day, that's number one. Your Friday guys got to match that Friday guy, and I believe in momentum. If you can grab that Friday game, obviously you instantly have the advantage. Doesn't mean you're going to win the series, but it sure does help. But you do have the advantage of sitting in there and watching how we're attacking the hitters, keeping the pitching chart when you're not the Friday guy and you're going Saturday and Sunday. But now, Tommy, with video and everything that we have for, at our fingertips, they're scouted pretty heavily, pretty well before we start.
Going back to pitching, going back to Aidan, watching the Sunday game, I was just kind of blown away about how much he can use his changeup and how he can use it in any count, any situation, and for some big swings of misses of powerful bats like Zion Rose. Can you just kind of walk us through the development of that changeup and then how he has the confidence now to throw it in any situation, any count? Because I know he was kind of developing that last season.
Yeah, credit to Coach Gaines and Coach Haugh. I mean, really worked on that, emphasized it, called it a ton in the fall. Sat down with Aidan and said, hey, we're not going to be caught up in your ERA or your numbers in the fall. We want to throw this pitch a ton. That's how you get better at it. And now he's fearless with it. He throws it with fastball arm speed. It's almost like a split finger. It's got that much depth. He can use it against righties. He can use it against lefties. And he's a power arm. He's still got the curveball. So it's been a big game changer for him. And a swing and miss pitch that he can go to, like in the first inning when he needs a big strikeout to try to prevent those runs. It got to second and third with no outs. But I credit the player the most. You know, Aidan's worked hard on it. He believes in it. He has no fear with it. Like I tell our pitchers, when you're throwing a changeup, you know, the myth is you can only throw it to the opposite hitter, right? If you're right-handed, you throw it to lefties. If you're left-handed, you throw it to righties. It's more devastating on the right. You just have to be fearless with it and have no fear that, hey, you know, it's going to, quote, do him a favor and he's going to get the bat head out. But most of the time they're early on it and they pull it foul and it can set him up. But it's been a great pitch for him. But it's also a great pitch for him because his fastball velocity is good. He's holding his fastball velocity and it's an arm speed pitch. So the hitter's seeing fastball out of the hand for sure.
You talk about that Jason's kind of going to work on streamlining his delivery. Both Maddie and Folger, two of those arms that you've come to depend on, maybe haven't had their best stuff. Are they going to work kind of, is that a mental confidence thing on the mound, or could they also find some help in those deliveries?
You know, Maddie's battled a back issue a little bit, so he's been able to pitch through that. The interesting thing about Matty is he's dominated left-handed hitters with that cutter. So setting up righties different. His walks to strikeouts are really good. So I don't get too alarmed if you're giving up a couple hits or a couple home runs. If you're not walking people and you're striking people out, a lot of times that stuff's going to even out. And Matty's good enough to equalize those righties just like he is those lefties. So he'll get back to doing that. Probably uses curveball more against righties, pitch into righties more. But I also think when he gets that back under control, it'll help with his velocity. Folger just hasn't pitched a lot, you know, trying to knock the rust off. You know, he's got to get that slider where it's more consistent and it's doing something where he can use it as a strikeout pitch. He's not starting right now, so he's got to learn that routine of being out of the bullpen, getting on the mound more. You know, so I have a ton of confidence in both those guys. As much as Matty's pitched, though, he's one of our horses, and he's going to continue to be.
When you look at the stats, I believe I'm not good at math, but it looks like 16 guys have thrown at least an inning for you thus far this year. Are you satisfied with that? I mean, we've talked a lot. You want to be 8 to 10. Are you sort of – it's still early, relatively speaking. Is there room for more guys to get in the mix, or do you feel good where you are, assuming you stay completely healthy?
You know, you never really know. There can be a guy emerge, or you hope and pray that you don't have an injury. Obviously, we all feel really good about our rotation, and then Cam threw really good at Wilmington. He's going to start again against UConn. We've really been impressed with what we've seen with Olin Johnson emerging out of the bullpen with a power arm. Chmielewski was really good on video, and I think he's going to be to help us against lefties. So I'm pretty happy with where we are. From the standpoint of you have a good idea how you're going to match up, who you're going to use. We just have to be better out of the bullpen consistently. And then as we move along, we're going to make a decision like, okay, this is our guy. This is our closer. Similar to a Dalton Pence situation, but obviously Dalton was a little unconventional because he was a 2 to 3 inning type closer. And that's kind of been Lynch. You know, McDuffie's been good. McDuffie needs a little more rest than Lynch. Lynch is a bigger kid, reminds me a lot of a Trent Thornton. So, you know, I like the options that we have. I think if our starting pitching continues to give us depth, Jason gets back to giving us depth, we can use guys in different roles and not wear them out.
Talking with head coach Scott Forbes of the North Carolina Diamond Heels. Coach Forbes, you've never been one to shy away from changing things up when you're winning, especially the batting order. But in the field, you mentioned earlier, you got to make plays in the field. And there have been some struggles out there. Some corner outfields has some issues. Yeah. What is the struggle there, and what is the challenge for you and your coaching staff to get it ironed out? I mean, errors happen, misplays happen, but what is that process like for you guys trying to get it nailed down?
Number one is practice. You got to work at it. So, and we haven't had many days to practice because of the weather, and then we had to play so many games in so many days. But a great example today is, Perry Hargett, Tyson Bass, Rom Kellis, Sawyer Black. All of our outfielders are going to work their tails off on their reads. We got to learn from being on turf where there is no warning track, how to get back and figure out where the warning track is. Working with guys on their first step, working with guys that are in a new position maybe on that first step. And that's where the coaching comes in, believing in guys, believing in reps. Reps matter, hard work matters. So that's where we're going to start. And then, as we move along throughout the season, you get to a point where, okay, the value of defense. And if our pitching's that good, you're going to play the best defender. And they're going to have to be role guys offensively if guys aren't bringing you anything offensively. So we've talked about it in all aspects. We're only 20 games in. But you don't want to give outs, especially in the corner outfield, because those are going to give extra runs most of the time compared to a ground ball. And our infield defense has been pretty good throughout the year, a couple here and there, but not many. Tyson's an interesting because he's made so many unbelievable plays. He's had a couple. I always look at how the ball's hit, how hard it's hit, how difficult the play was, how new is a guy out there. So we're just going to keep working on it and go from there. I don't know if we'll make any drastic changes, but I do know that these guys will work to get better, and that's the fun part. I watched Casey Cook be an average outfielder through hard work, become an above average outfielder. I watched D'Onofrio come here, play completely out of control, and learn to get more under control. So throwing the ball to the right base, those type of things, positioning. I always put the ownership on me and the coaches first because we're the coaches, they are the players, and it's our job to recognize and go watch video and look what we see and look at our bats, look at our first steps, and then our job is to help them improve. So that's what we're going to work on today and tomorrow before the UConn game.
Speaking of changes, you popped Sawyer Black into the lineup for the first time this weekend. Can you just kind of speak to what you saw in practice from him and then how he performed in the game that kind of merited that spot?
Yeah, he's looked really good in every aspect. He's improved tremendously defensively. He had a lot of balls hit to him at every play. He's got power. He can hit a fastball. He is a freshman, but his swing plays against fastballs. And in college baseball, take away the guy Sunday who was sinking it and throwing a bunch of different junk. You got to be able to hit it because most teams that's what they do. They're going to try to throw fastballs by you. And he's shown that he can do that. So that was what we all have seen. His teammates saw it, and it was cool to see him step in there and hit a home run opposite field, give us competitive at-bats. So he's a guy that continues to emerge. I thought Carter French had two really good at-bats. They went 3-2 counts. He didn't win them. But we're trying to figure out the bottom and how to get guys on base so we can flip that order, which there's no doubt in my mind our guys they'll start doing that.
When you structure your lineup, say you're seeing a pitcher like Patrick Forbes who has that velocity, do you kind of take into consideration that some of the guys in your lineup are better at hitting velocity, some of them are better at hitting off-speed stuff, or do you just kind of put them in there based on what you've seen already in the season? We
look at all of it. Traditionally, you're going to put your best hitters in there, 1 through 5. Who you think your best hitters are then currently. You can either look at it as an old school lineup or you can go an analytic lineup, but even analytic lineup has your best 5 hitters in the top 5, right? That's the way analytics work. Your best hitters should be 1, 2, 4, 5. Your 5th best should be 3 analytically. Depending on who you have, depends on how analytic you might want to go, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it does matter. It may flip your 5 and 6. It could flip your 5 and 7, depending on the matchup that day. But we're trying to get our best hitters in that order first, and then match up second.
What do you think this is your first ACC road trip. What do you think the guys took away? I mean, you had all the weather delays, all the double headers, just a crazy travel schedule, and you have more travel coming up to Boston College and then Pitt and later Tallahassee. What do you think the guys, especially these young ones, took away from what an ACC road trip is like?
I think they all took a lot away from really the last 2 weeks. You go 13-0, you lose Friday, you got to learn to recover from that. You win Saturday. You're expecting to win Sunday. It doesn't go like you want it to. Then all of a sudden you got to go to Wilmington. Yes, it's spring break, but you're still going somewhere on the road. Harder to win on the road. That's what number one they've realized right out of the gate. It just is. It doesn't matter where you go. It's harder. They call it home field advantage for a reason. You have to travel. You got to go to airports. You got to be on a bus. You're out of your environment. How to manage that? How to make sure you're hydrating. You're taking care of your body so you can manage it, move around the hotel. So you go to Wilmington, then you have to come back. You get back really late, you recover, work out, and you're on a plane. Then all of a sudden you find out you're playing a doubleheader. You got to manage that. You got to play 18 innings. Then Saturdays, you're not playing at all. We got to figure that part out, and then we got to find a way to be at our best on Sunday. So it just makes you better and better being on the road when it's your first time, especially young guys. But even older guys, you haven't been on the road. You got to manage it. Some of these guys, we didn't have to go on the road as much last year, except at Miami, really travel because we were at State, at Duke, at Wake. That's not really on the road. We stayed at a hotel, at Wake. So really just learning to manage it all and, what you did well, what you didn't do well. Should have I done this better? And I knew looking at the schedule, like, okay. And they also learned it's hard. It's harder. It's not as easy as just because you start 13-0. I mean, every team's going to have some times where you just kind of got to navigate it, and that's part of the college baseball season. So that's what our guys are doing this week. They're excited about playing UConn midweek, but then we got to hop right back on a plane. It's going to be a colder environment. Louisville, too, you learn like it can be 70 on Friday and freeze your tail off. I mean, we were all freezing on Sunday, but they were freezing too, so you can't use it as an excuse. Same thing at BC. Well, yeah, they are at home. It is cold. They're used to practicing there, but we've played in cold too. The turf's fine. So I just make sure I reiterate to our guys, like, yes, it is harder, but it's more gratifying when you find a way to get it done when it's harder. So we're looking forward to that challenge, but we also don't want to, the challenge now is the guys know, okay, I got this, I got that, I got school, I got this. I got to get ready. We're leaving on Thursday. Well, we got a game against a good UConn team. They went to Miami and beat them 2 out of 3 on Wednesday. So just focusing on reminding them to focus on what we preach. And that is outcomes or distractions either way. Don't overplay the wins. Don't overplay the losses. Come in here yesterday. Like yesterday was a great example where we did nothing. We haven't had a Monday. Our guys a little bit gassed, just said, don't come in here, do what you want to do. And then we'll get back to work today, which we're going to do. And we'll play UConn tomorrow and get on that plane at BC and probably freeze. But it looks decent. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Like, it's going to be above 50. So that's better than what we've been there in the past.
You better take the Parkers with you. Fun question. Let you get out of here. Tell me about Saturday. What I mentioned last week, what do you do? How do you get some fun worked into a weekend? Saturday was free in Louisville. You went to the Louisville Slugger Museum. How was that to see your team at least enjoy a road trip?
No doubt. Well, creating memories, that's what you want to do for these guys. I remind them every day, what's most important is how you treat others. And number 2, this is it. This is your team. Even if you're here next year, you won't have the same team. So this is every team's only its team one time. Dive into it, enjoy it. You want your group to have everybody knows what our standards are as far as winning. We expect to win, and we don't. We're all going to be ticked off, but we also want to be able to manage it and separate it. And we have a Saturday like that. Find a way to enjoy it. Find something to do. So we went to the Louisville Slugger Museum. We had a good workout in the morning over at Louisville. We got an extra lift in, things that add up later in the season. And then as coaches, you gotta use that time too to prepare. I just left the PGA game, whatever was on, so that was peaceful. Started working on, UConn, and don't want your players doing that, and let them have a little bit of fun too. Just walk around and play cards and hang out.
Be college kids. That is head coach Scott Forbes of the Diamond Hills. UConn, 4:00 Wednesday, and then traveling to Boston College for a chilly 3-game series. Coach Forbes, always appreciate your time.
Thank you. And we're at home after now for 3 weeks. So all the fans out there, we're going to need you to pack it.
Yeah,
we'll be very, very excited to be back home. I can tell you that after we get back from Charlotte on the following Tuesday.
Yeah, it was like 8 of 9 away. You played 8 and 9 days, and then 8 of 9 away. So, like you mentioned, a roller coaster so far. Appreciate it, Coach.
All right, thanks. Y'all have a great day.